item to tonight's agenda. And so I will entertain a motion to add approval of the 6-year capital facilities plan as a separate action item after Resolution 0425 Asset Preservation Program. So this would be item number 9 in your agenda. So yeah, did you have anything to add, Superintendent VanderYacht, for an explanation?
Well, the explanation is that we do have a resolution that is approving the adoption of the capital facilities plan and authorization of the superintendent to pursue the collection of impact fees. But I think there's some interest in potentially amending the actual capital facilities plan before approving it. And so think that it would be cleaner if you do that as a board as a separate item. Once the capital facilities plan is approved, then the next action will be to take it to surface the question of approving the resolution on there. And so it's really just a procedural thing to allow the amendment of the 6-year capital plan so it is aligned with how the board would like it to read.
So basically, we're inserting adoption of the 6-year approval of the 6-year plan before Resolution 0325.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I'll make a motion to insert in action items the approval of the 6-year plan.
I second.
Second motion made and seconded. Any discussion? No? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries by voice vote, so we will add that to the agenda. Okay. Great. And then just our normal question, would anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda and allow for discussion? Or is everybody okay with the consent agenda as presented? Good? Okay. And then is there any other modifications to the agenda in any other way? Okay.
Approval of the agenda.
All right, so now we need to approve the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Okay. Second. All in favor of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Carries by a voice vote. Oh, technically, I didn't ask for a discussion, but I didn't think we needed one, so I think we're okay. All right, so now that we're done with the agenda, we can move on to good news from Superintendent Bundy.
Yeah, so we have in writing the announcement that Director Owsley made last week around 2,330 pounds of food collected by the Fisher Elementary School and distributed to the food bank. I also want to add that the Fisher PTA put on a fun-filled daughter and VIP dance on Friday, February 21st from 6 to 7:30 in the Fisher gym. I know we do have a Fisher dad in the audience, and maybe he'll mention that today as well. But it is highlighted each of our elementary schools or some of the events between dads and moms and their kids. Linden Middle School took 15 student leaders to a leadership conference in Anacortes on February 26. LMS students partnered with student leaders from other schools to exchange ideas, explore servant leadership, and participate in team building activities. Students left loaded with new ideas and energized for action to continue building a positive school climate and culture at LMS. 2 of the Linden FFA agricultural issues teams presented to the Mount Baker Rotary as part of the students' contest preparations. The Washington State FFA Convention will be held in Pullman from May 8 through 10. The Linden FFA will be taking 51 students to compete in roughly 14 different contests ranging from agriculture communications to parliamentary procedures and beyond. I am a member of the Rotary, and it's always an honor to be able to be there and see our students perform and also interact. Proud of those students. The winter sports season is coming to an end. Yeah. Sadly, it's a little bit more meaningful tonight. Congrats to the Linden High School boys swim team on a successful season, a run into districts. Boys and girls varsity teams are both district champs and are in Yakima The boys team lost this morning, and they have 2 games left potentially. They play a loser out game tomorrow morning, and I think the highest they can finish then is third
right?
place, I believe. Yeah, yep. And then the girls are playing right now. They had a pretty comfortable lead at halftime for the start of this meeting. And then we did have, as Ashley had mentioned last meeting, we had 8 wrestlers qualify for state wrestling tournament in Tacoma. Congratulations to all of our athletes. I saw the band on Facebook. I know there's been a lot of love to the drama. I know some of you may mention that you attended during an information time, but a lot of just positive things for our students to be engaged in. And then finally, just one that isn't here, as I sent an email to the board just informing them, and I just want to share that the Linden School District, in its attempt to fund maintenance and upgrades and capital projects, did receive a grant recently for over $1 million to provide upgrades in heating and ventilation upgrades at Bernice Vosbeck Elementary School. And upgrades to our lighting. So thanks to Kevin Burke, who will be doing some presentations tonight, and his team for pursuing and receiving that. And so we have a couple others that are in the hopper as well, but again, this is all part of the attempt to respond to our needs in ways in which, every which way we can. So,
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, Superintendent VanderYacht. All right, next we're going to move on to approval of the minutes from the meeting on February 20th. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 20th, it's written.
Okay,
Second.
motion made, seconded. Any discussion? Corrections? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, so the minutes are approved by voice vote. All right, now we're on to the consent agenda, as presented in your board packet. And so I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, I've got several motions and a second.
who are we going with?
We're going with Ken, let's go with Ken as a motion, and let's go with Director Barrar as a second. Thank you. That's, all right, any discussion? No? All right, hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? None opposed. The consent agenda is approved by voice vote. All right. Now we're on to information from the audience. I still haven't memorized this spiel, so. Those wishing to address the board must sign up on the sheet provided. Individuals may address the board agenda on items as well as non-agenda items. Tonight's agenda items that could result in action being taken in front of the board include Resolution 0325, Adoption of Capital Facilities Plan, Authorization to Request Impact Fees, and 0425, Asset Preservation Program. Speakers will be recognized by the board at the time they are to speak. Each speaker has a maximum of 5 minutes. It is important for community managers to feel welcome and safe during the meeting. Board members listen and learn from public comment, but generally will not respond. Topics raised during public comment may receive a follow-up from a board member or the superintendent at a later date as appropriate. The school board does not take public comments on issues related to personnel or individually named staff members. The presiding officer of the board reserves the right to terminate an individual statement when the allotted time has passed, and may interrupt the speaker to require the same standard of civility as the board imposes on itself, as specified in our board policy 1400. All right, with that, we have one community member signed up to speak, Mr. Swaka today. Oh, sorry, Saka.
Thanks, Director Berger.
Yes.
Nick Sofka, 17 Mulberry Drive. So, I wanted to speak a little bit about policy, I believe it's 1733 that allow compensation for board members. I think, I do not agree with it, and that's probably the nicest way I can say it, okay? I understand you want to be compensated for your time. A per meeting option would probably be best. But as outlined in 1733, you could get compensated for commencement ceremonies, staff retirements, and other functions. So now, your kids go to graduate and you're there, and the parents in the back of their heads are thinking, are they being paid to be here? And who's going to watch the watchers? You're talking about $24,000 annually that you will be taking out of the coffers of the public school system so that you can supplement your income. I would prefer you gave it to the student reps. They could probably use the money more than you could. So I'm very upset about it. I kind of tossed it through my own thoughts in my head. Would I take the money, wouldn't I? And I probably would take the money, and I'm happy to tell you that tonight, if I do ever get to be in one of your positions, and I do get the money, that I'm going to donate every cent back to local school programs within the district. And then I'll pay the taxes on them. I'll take the double tax hit. I just feel that, like, you know, and look around, right? We have one person in the audience, two people in the audience. This is like a sweeping under the rug. Like, oh, let's compensate ourselves because Washington State says that we can. Do you really want to be associated with some parts of Washington State that make the rules for the majority of the state? Do you know who else compensates their school board members? Oregon. There's 13 states nationally that have outright banned compensation for school board members. 6% of all school board members nationwide make over $10,000 a year. You don't, if you're receiving compensation, it opens the door to be compromised. End of story. I know you want to be paid back for your gas. I know whenever you go to conferences, you need per diem and stuff like that. Nobody's saying you're not entitled to that. But when you're sitting here at a meeting, you signed up voluntarily for it. You knew what the job entailed. You asked for it. You got it. And now you change the rules in order to benefit yourself and take money out of the coffers of the public school system. I don't think it's a good look. And I commend the two board members who didn't vote in favor of it. I mean, come on, this is Linda. You know, we're better than that. But hey, you know what AC/DC always said, money talks. With that being said, though, I will say I did have a good fun time at the Fisher family, father VIP dance. It was a good time. I had one of my guys from Kiwanis come. He did a bunch of balloon animals, and he was backed up even a half hour after the dance ended, making balloon animals for little girls. So that was something to see. I think he's probably gonna kick my butt next time he sees me, because he probably, wore his hands out. But again, think about what you're doing. Think about how it would be perceived if the shoe was on the other foot. I'm going to be writing an article. It's going to go out the first week in April. It pretty much touches on a lot of this. I'm not even against you guys receiving compensation if you're at a meeting like tonight. What I'm against is, hey, we're going to go celebrate so-and-so's retirement. Oh, I'm going to get paid for that. Oh, we're going to go see the commencement of Linden Academy. Oh, I'm going to get paid for that. I'm afraid that there's nobody going to be watching the watchers, and you're going to get another $4,600 a year as supplemental income. And I'm sorry, not sorry, you don't deserve that. It's a volunteer position. You should be here because you want to be. Thank you for your time.
All right.
President Verberg, do you mind me providing one point of clarification?
I do not. Go right ahead.
Just
Yes.
one thing, just want to clarify that the policy also does not go into effect on currently sitting board members, so it is only within the start of a next term. And so I wanted to clarify that with you and just with the public on that.
I read that part in the policy as well, but still yet, even to broach this,
Yeah, I think your point was made. I just wanted to make sure that that clarification was there, because that point wasn't covered in that, and I want to make sure that there's an understanding of that.
All right. We have no more public speakers tonight, so next item is information from board directors, superintendent, and student representatives. So yeah, I'm going to do my custom and start with our student reps and see if there's any updates from them.
Wait, do we need a mic? We don't have a mic.
Oh, you don't have a mic? There you go.
Hey, Ashley.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Wow, all right.
So yesterday we had another student focus group. Before that, I want to talk about the play that we did or the musical that we did for the high school. Did anyone go to it? Did you guys like it?
Absolutely.
Yes. It was.
So we knew that I didn't know if everybody who wanted to participate gets to.
Yes. Yes. It's,
What was that, Director Burke?
Sorry, on my mic. Joking. I just said I thought it was cool to learn that anybody who wants to participate gets a position to participate.
Yes.
Now you get the big one.
So yeah, we just wanted to shout out Tina Miller for putting all of that on. It was an amazing show. I went through something, but it was amazing. And then, so we had our student focus group yesterday, and we kind of went into the meeting yesterday with more of a positive outlook. Instead of just like negativity of the high school, we wanted to like praise on what is going good in the high school. So we talked a lot about clubs and the opportunity students get in clubs, and kind of how they make people feel like at home. Especially some theater kids were in the meeting yesterday, and they were talking about the play and how they feel like they're at home there. And we also talked about the Avid program at the high school. And Avid school? Is it Avid school too?
Yes.
Okay. And how that just sets up the students for like really great success in high school. That's like note taking, just understanding lectures and everything. And we also talked about getting more awareness for like academic praise in the high school. And like at the end of the year, we do have academic achievement night. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. But we were thinking like maybe doing something monthly for the students, like praising students more often than just one time at the end of the year. So we're working with some staff about that right now. But
Kyle pretty much hit on everything. It was a really good student focus group yesterday.
Okay.
We got through quite a bit, and we were able to connect with the students really well. Everyone was participating. It was great. I don't know what else to say. It was just a great meeting overall. I don't know. Anything else?
something else like about these meetings that personally I've noticed is like there's never really like a silent time. Like there's never like an awkward silence. Like people are able to keep the conversation going, which is better because I feel like if there was like an adult or like teacher like leading it, maybe it would get awkward, or maybe like they wouldn't want to say something.
Yeah,
But
for the student focus groups, it's just Kyle and I. We don't have an adult present at all. This last time we did it in the library in a more confined area, and it felt more like, I don't know what to,
like we just felt connected with the
felt
students.
connected a lot more than other spaces we've had these meetings. And no awkward silence at all. It's quite amazing because these students want to come and they want to talk about what they give us the things they want to talk about, and we follow up on that. It's just amazing overall. Anything else?
That's fantastic.
One other thing, tomorrow Kyle, Mr. VanderYacht, and I are heading down to Anacortes for the
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
For the ESD, yeah.
conference.
I'll pass that on, the
Yeah.
little flyer for what they're gonna be on. We just wanna
Could you
take
give us an
that.
update next meeting about that? I'd love
Yeah.
to hear more about that. It'd be wonderful.
Pretty early in the morning, at least early. But we'll be down there, I think it starts at 9 in the morning, and we're done around 1-ish. We'll be back at 6:30. I'm super
Fantastic.
excited.
I'm just gonna,
Yeah.
I don't know what we're supposed to expect.
Yeah, we're supposed to like bring something to take notes with, and I think we're just really sharing our successes with other student board representatives, from
Oh, that's
around
great.
the area.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We're super excited. I think there's some emails from other board reps from around the area, and they're super excited. Yeah. Something we've been looking forward to, and we're just excited to go.
Can I ask a question about the academic praise?
Yes.
So what, have you thought about like will that look like? Like how will that be implemented? Will it be kind of like a daily announcement or?
We were asking the students how they would like to be praised. Nothing really was like set on. We had some.
I don't think we've gotten into the specifics yet. I don't really know, like, if we want to do, like, certificates
This
or
topic-
how it was
Yeah,
chosen.
this topic actually came out of staff members who, our security officer, she had asked me about it, and she wanted me to talk to the students about it, and so I got the students' input on it, and I think that's something that will definitely come up in the next meeting. So we're hopefully going to be able to implement something that make our students feel like they're being praised enough for the academic achievement.
Cool.
This is an email from another student board director, right?
From the Oak Harbor,
That's
yeah,
what this is.
yeah.
Yeah, so something caught my eye here that I wanted to point out to you two. She says, in my experience as a student rep, there have been a few times when I've gotten imposter syndrome, wondered if I'm doing enough, thought someone else would do a better job. I'm 55, and that happens to me all the time. So if you guys struggle with that, just know it's normal.
It's a thing.
You guys are doing a great job. So if you ever feel like, if you ever get a whiff of that, just remember, we all struggle with that, so. But probably Jim does it, but I.
I tell ya. Yeah.
To do as much as we can. We only have so much power in the school district and
Right.
in school in general. But we actually have these conversations with Freeman, and we're trying to get stuff to happen.
Is there a structure for that set up that you guys have identified yet, or Mr. Freeman has shared, like how we're gonna take your student focus group into action?
We've had.
I know the first early work with Freeman was how do we get the student focus group gets
Yeah.
off the ground, right? So, great job.
Yeah,
So
check, yeah.
We haven't had a meeting about this stuff that happened yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we've had meetings from the last one, and actually, we're already working on stuff. Hopefully that will be implemented next year. I'm not gonna go into the details
Yeah.
of it, because we don't know quite yet,
Yeah.
but we are working on
Yeah.
stuff.
We do have, like, a little bit of an idea. We want to implement, like, a link program
Yeah.
at the high school where, like, seniors are paired with freshmen at the
Or
beginning of
just
the
new
year.
students in general, like
Oh.
exchange students,
Yes.
new students from other schools, freshmen. That is something we're really hoping, we're gonna try to get
Wow.
the rules figured out this year, and then when Kyle's leaving me, I'll take it into next year and with whoever my next partner is, and we'll implement it hopefully. That's our plan so far.
Okay.
Can I piggyback on that question, because I have it here. So they've been doing a great job, with the reports, the polls, and kind of giving us the temperature and, what's happening inside of the high school, right, concerns and whatnot. Is Superintendent VanderYacht taking care of that, or is it they're working with Mr. Freeman, and then, reports-wise, follow-up-wise,
With Mr. Freeman mainly, I've worked with Mr. Freeman, that's how this kind of
Okay.
got going. We're looking at ASB and ASB government and doing some revamp and this, and so, but Mr. Freeman and the staff at the high school and the student reps will be the ones in
Excuse me.
position to move it, and then
Gotcha.
I can support and,
Yeah, how can we help, in what they're doing, kind
Yep.
of the whole framework. And I know it takes time, like
Yep.
you said, they're revamping the whole ASB.
Yeah, I think at this, to answer that question, I would just kind of be a learner, right? That
Yeah.
in April, we've got a report coming. I think we're going to put some time into that report to understand how ASB government works, and then as they talk about, and I think tomorrow is going to be a little bit about process on how to implement things, successes and kind of challenges that come up.
So
Yeah.
far, the student focus groups has mainly been Kyle, Freedom, and I.
Gotcha.
That it's mainly been us, and then
That seems fine.
Kyle's such a great note taker, and he sends out his notes to Freeman, and then Freeman does what he needs to do with the notes. And then we come here and we give you a little update about it. That's pretty much the process so far.
We also, Ashley and I both meet with Freeman and we
Yeah.
analyze the notes
Yeah.
and we talk about how can we implement stuff into our school to make it better.
Usually these meetings are like 30, 45 minutes long. I think we
Yeah.
had
Oh.
one that was like an hour long once. And we've been getting a lot of support from staff members, just in general. I get asked like 3 times after each meeting, how'd it go?
Mhm.
Like, and I'm just so happy to be able to be like, it went great. It went
Yeah.
great, and I can give them a little gist of what happened and what we talked about, and there's just been so much support from staff members at the high school,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I absolutely love. Knowing that what we're trying to do is appreciated throughout the school.
And then I think maybe at authentic, genuinely, authentically coming out of this, there may be some things within our board policy that can be addressed to be
Sure.
able to support some of the things that are happening.
Thank you. Well, thank you for what you do.
Yes.
Looking at the success of, the students participating, I think you guys are great leaders because you're giving the space, for people to be safely, say their concerns and whatnot, and that is a mark of great leadership, so,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the student? Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I second Director Barr's comments. This is fantastic. I love it.
In the link program, it's going places, I know.
Yeah, well, and maybe that's something you can share if there's an opportunity with your, tomorrow.
We have a lot that we
Yeah.
are prepared to share.
That's great. All right, I'll just go down the line. Director Hickman, do you have anything for the,
Well, Hello Dolly was a good one.
yeah?
My husband came and he was like, why have we not done this more?
Mhm.
Yeah, so, yeah, it was well done. It was pretty cool. And just, I'd be exhausted if I had to do that one time, stage fright and everything else. But
Yeah.
that was impressive that they did that, that they did that multiple times. Yeah, it was well done.
Thank you. Director Martinez, anything for the group?
Not a whole lot. We had a finance meeting, but we'll do
Yeah,
updates
we'll do an
for
update.
the committees a little bit later.
Yep.
I think that Nick brings up a really good point in terms of that. I'm glad that we're having a discussion around that. I'd love the opportunity, since there's a representative from the Tribune here, for the board to be able to respond to something like that, or at least give a board, not from any one of us individually, but more from our president, just communications to the community as to the justification for why we voted the way that we did. I don't want misinformation all in the community. So that's just,
I always encourage anybody to send in commentaries to go into our newspaper. Nick does this so regularly, and I really wish more people would involve themselves.
okay.
All right.
That's what the opinion page is for.
Yeah, yeah.
15 times out of every 10,
Yeah.
you see something that the public wrote, not something I wrote.
Yeah,
When I write something that's more personal,
right. Well, I've seen your stuff, and so I agree.
at the end of the day, it really should come from you all, and
Yeah, I think so too. So,
Sure.
yeah.
deadline is Friday at noon, 500 words.
Okay.
And I've got mugshots of each of you.
That's good.
Unless I have backlog
Okay.
of commentaries, then it would hold a week. But
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Director Brar, anything from you this
Me?
week?
Yes, always do. Today was my first time to judge a speech debate thing. It was at the Grace Baptist Church, and I saw a lot of familiar faces.
Oh, that's what was happening there, okay.
Yeah, it's for another 2 days more.
Okay,
But since I'll be out for a conference, so I won't be able to, I wish I had time. So today was tight, but debate has been a passion of mine. But, family responsibilities never gave me that, time. We always don't have much time. But yeah, it was fun. The one where I sat was, just two people having a, value-based debate. And it was just, such a eye-opening experience from where, the youth comes in and the knowledge, communication skills that they present, because communication is a lifeline. Some things that I was able to share with them was just like Director Owsley said, even I'm not 55, but I struggle, also with how do you communicate confidently, how do you effectively, how do you do that effectively without being nervous, right? Because sometimes you think of something else, but then it comes out as something else. So,
Sure.
Especially in a group of people. So I appreciate that opportunity this morning. Other updates I have would be there's a lot happening in the past couple months, and there's just one concern I would like to share is the oath of office that we took. The concern about that would be, if we are, as a board, are able to kind of look into our options, whether it be legal analysis, whether, I'm not sure how that's going to look, but I'm just putting it out there, especially onto Title IX, because we're in a space between what do you call that?
rock on a hard place?
English communication. So a rock and a hard place.
Yes.
So I'm just kind of concerned, in terms of getting, I know the deadline is already up from last week, coming from Department of Education. They said, we give you 14 days to comply with Title IX, and that is up. So, where do we go from here? And I think either we be proactive, right? Or wait for, funding to go away from one of the two. And I just, so I'm perplexed. But some of the updates I already shared with the board, I'll just share with the public as well, that there is one school district, Moses Lake School District, that is going to have a school board meeting on Monday. And they have a letter that they would be sending to OSPI and the governor that they would comply with Title IX over the 3211 gender inclusive schools policy, because, both of them are conflicting. So that'll be interesting to see on Monday what happens. That's about it.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Did you
Yes.
say 321, the unexcused excuse absence, or
No.
3?
Gender
What?
inclusive.
The gender
schools.
closes school
Yeah.
policy, yeah, 32, yeah, right. Yeah. All right, thank you, Barr. Any other questions for Director Barr?
Can I just
Yeah,
also
go ahead.
just
Yeah.
follow up that with, we are following a process, and with that amendment, my hope is that with enough pressure, even before it comes down to withholding some sort of fees, that there'll be hopefully a resolution come this spring that pass. I'm holding out hope.
Yep.
I'm hopeful.
Yep. Yeah, I'll add to that. There's been a lot in the news lately. There's actually some misreporting by some of the news outlets saying that the Tumwater School District voted to ban biological men, and that's not true. What they did is they voted to support our WIA
The amendments, yeah.
amendments.
So they passed a resolution to
yep.
support the amendment.
Yeah, and it was a 3-1 vote, one abstention. So even in Tumwater, I'm pleased with where things are at. I think things are developing honestly the way they should. None of us in some cases feel like things are moving fast enough, but they are. Things are evolving very quickly. And so I think we just have, in my opinion, we just have to be really very deliberate and thoughtful about how we proceed. And so that's what I'd like to see us do. So, all right. Great. Anything from you this week?
Yeah, I got 2 points. One, Director Hickman and I went to the high school, and through the high school with the superintendent and the principal. And that was a very good time. The schedule got a little wonky, so I kind of met with the guys late. But one of the things we did that was, it just sort of got tacked on at the end, was we went to, it's Mr. VanderYacht,
You have to
correct?
do a shout out. Do a
Mr.
shout out.
VanderYacht. He told me that he listens to every board meeting, so I wanted to say Mr. VanderYacht into the microphone. Anyway, he teaches a math class.
Algebra 1.
Sorry?
Algebra 1, right?
Yeah, he teaches an algebra class to students who don't speak English very well.
Level 1,
And
emerging English learners.
Yeah, and he does his best to speak Spanish with the kids, with the students, and he's got a couple of interventionists, paraeducators, and it was really kind of neat to see that and interact with a couple of the students and see the work they were doing, and I just thought that was cool. That was neat to tack that on to the end. We weren't expecting to do that. Had some interesting conversations with the principal about security and that one particular door and how students move around, and that particular area is one that we had looked at before, I don't know, a couple of years ago when I was there. So that was a good visit. And the second thing I'll point out is a simple thing, but again, it's just a pleasure of my new role in kind of conjunction with being on the school board, and it's not really being on the school board, but it's just knowing people and knowing to talk to them. So Margaret Valancourt contacted me a couple of days ago, and she said there was a family in the district that needed help with rent, and that they had some donated money, not taxpayer money, but donated money to help pay rent. And could I help with that as well? And it was a little bit more than what we typically do, and was able to communicate with the local church and bring some additional money to help this family that's in our district not get evicted from their apartment, which is it was a really neat thing to be able to. She came by today and we chatted a bit about it. And that's a really neat thing to do in this position of seeing that. So supporting the community, and one thing I will say, I think about this a lot. Linden has gotten a bad, and I'll say this publicly, Linden has typically had a very bad reputation amongst certain people as being this hard-nosed, horrible, conservative, selfish town. In my experience, in 7 months at Project Hope, is that Linden is an extraordinarily generous community. So anyway, that was just a neat experience to work with the district to be able to help a family in the district. So that's all I have.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Owsley. Thank you for the work you do. Thanks. For sure. Any questions for? Yeah, no, I don't have much tonight other than to say that I too went to the Hello Dolly. Continued. My daughter was in Drummond, so I've been to several of these over the last 4 years, but this one was really good. Just shout out to Tina Miller and all of the volunteers too, parent volunteers. It's amazing how much work they do, the set building, and the level of talent amongst our young people. And others in our community just always blows me away. And so, yeah, it was fantastic. So anyway, and then I also saw the article. I thought the article about our wonderful band was fantastic. I'll just say I need to get to some band concerts this year. Try to do that too. So, all right. Great. So let's see. Information reports. I will now turn the meeting over to Superintendent VanderYacht for a presentation of some reports.
We have 2 reports for the board tonight. Finance report, that is a closeout of January 2025, presented by Ben Thomas. And then that's going to be followed by an asset preservation program report by Kevin Burke. And so information's in your packet, and they'll move up to the table here, and go through these two reports.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, Ben?
First of all, Ashley just left, but I gotta say, same thing, I've been doing this for 25 years. You two are very good at participation, I'm very impressed with you. I'd be nervous if I was here.
Yeah.
If you turn your packet to page 13, I think Kelly did a good job. I understood that, I guess I, these are reports. I name every one of my files, so at the bottom it has my names of my files, and so I apologize, they will never be there again. At least for your report. But anyway, on page 13, I want to just share a couple things with you real quick. Yeah, on page 13. So the first thing I want to point out to you is this graph right here that talks about general fund balance. I've said this every meeting, the left bar should be smaller than the right bar. There's a few times when it's not. So January, February, and June are typically the months when we are below what we budgeted for. We'll speak to the projection and the fact that we're likely going to be above or equal to that number when we close up the year. But I want to make sure you need that. The other part, which Director Martinez is going to share in a little bit, but the audit is just about complete. I'll let him share the good news around that. So that's everything on page 13. There's really not a lot to report, nothing really changed from the last time we talked. I do want to share a couple of things. If you go to page 14 for enrollment, I neglected the last few times we talked this year. You'll see running start and dropout re-engagement both are above budget.
Right.
That's a good thing, but I want to point out one thing tied to it. We may have more revenue, but we're giving all the revenue away to the colleges. So even though it's more money, it's a wash. That's what it's saying. So I want to make sure I share that moving forward. So if you see those numbers in a positive way, at least from my perspective, I see it as a revenue neutral. But that said, we are still about 60 students above budget, so we are in good shape in that regard. David and I met yesterday with Trevor Carlson around a Moody's presentation we're getting to do. It's nice to be able to show we've got stable enrollment.
Yeah.
It's as we shared yesterday.
And Moody's presentation is related to the refunding of previous bond, and it's basically them doing their investigation for a credit rating.
Right.
So that is some detail associated with that.
So they do an enrollment risk analysis essentially? Okay.
Yep,
that
they
makes
do
sense,
an enrollment and
Yeah.
and revenue expenditure risk, but enrollment becomes a big risk analysis.
Especially how well we predicted in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
We've done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, you have.
So the last one, if you go to page.
So 15,
Which one?
which one?
This one,
18.
and again, you two saw this budget yesterday.
Yes, we did.
Show the rest of it.
Yep.
If you follow your way through the projection column, this middle one right here, the one that's in boxes.
Sorry, what page are we on?
Page 18.
There it is, yeah. His is landscape and ours isn't. That's,
Jump at you. I'd rather have the names and,
yeah.
I'm just teasing you. Ben. Go ahead.
Anyway, on page 18, I got if you look, first of all, beginning fund balance, we projected to start the year with about $5.7 million in the bank. We closed 23-24 with a little over $7 million. We knew that as we were closing out the year that was going to be the case. We were hoping to transfer about $1 million to capital during the fiscal year, prior year, we weren't able to. But we knew that starting the year we had the $7 million, and then we backed that out as we moved through the year, which I'll mention in a moment here. Our revenues are behaving pretty much how we predicted budget-wise. We're doing really well. Not well, but I mean, we're on par with what we planned for. On expenditures, we're a little bit over on what we planned for. So our MSOCs, materials, supplies, and operating costs are probably about $300,000 to $400,000 more than we anticipated. That said, I would say it's conservative what I put in there for our projections right now. That's kind of what I paid to do. It doesn't mean I'm inflating anything, it's just I'm doing my utmost to make sure I don't tell you that we're gonna do better than we think we are. So right now, our predictions we put together, we think we're going to land to finish the year between about $5 million and $5.75. We joked around a little bit yesterday at a meeting we had. $6 million might be the ceiling of where we think we're going to land. And the best part of all that is we're going to land right around what the board budgeted and approved us for 24-25, which is $5.7 million. That's about 8.75 or 9.75, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But it's a healthy
0.76.
number.
It's almost 10%, yeah.
So that said, right now, this is where we're at. This reflects, by the way, January is when we have a reset from the state saying, okay, you're no longer living off what we budgeted, you're living off of actual revenues. I don't anticipate the numbers changing very much, but this is what we know at this point in time.
I have a question. So there were talks about the TK funding, right, drying up. Do you guys have anybody has any update?
We talked about that yesterday.
Okay,
And I could say that for when you share, if you'd like to.
okay.
It's up to you.
Yeah, you can,
Either way.
now is
Yeah.
fine,
Go
it's
ahead and do it
perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right now, we're anticipating likely 24, 25, we will not have a reduction. What we've been hearing all along now is that if the funding carries into 25, 26, we won't be penalized, but we'll be capped in 25, 26, so that the state doesn't run into this again. So from what we're understanding right now, we'll be fully funded. If for some reason the carpet gets pulled from under us, it's about $200,000, 233, I think.
Sorry, just to be clear, we're talking about the proposed bill to move funding for TK. Is that what we're referring to here?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have two things going on.
Yeah.
One is there's a shortage in the current year at the state level, and so there's been some discussion about the money's not going to be there to complete transition to kindergarten for the current school year. Now, the Linden School District will complete.
Gotcha.
We
Thank
made
you.
commitment to staff and families, but if that funding does fall short and they make reductions to school districts, which is kind of surfaced a couple months ago that was a possibility, that would be a hit of about $200,000 in revenue in the current year. The indications are that is not going to happen, that will be fully funded, the schools will be fully funded for transition to kindergarten for this current year. And there's a bill in the legislature that's looking at next year's
To next year,
funding.
yeah.
Okay.
And the bill we're supportive of is a bill that fully funds transition to kindergarten, but caps the number of slots across the state, so the state doesn't get themselves in a situation where there's more services than the revenues to support them.
I see. So that bill is tied to the other issue of the funding. Okay, all right,
Going forward.
thanks, yeah, I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I didn't realize there
Question.
were two issues there.
And
Question.
Superintendent VanderYacht, did the TK, we have about 60 to 70 students? Do you know what that cap was? Or
Do
amount
we
of
have 72 students?
72, okay.
76 students. They haven't passed the bill yet. There's been some discussion that the cap would be at the 23, 24 levels. And so then we'd have to kind of look at what,
Which I believe is 60.
yeah, which was maybe 60 then. But again, it's still getting worked out. So that there may be, we have 5 sections. And it may be that we're not allowed to run 5 sections, or we're not funded for 5 sections. We could still use local dollars if the needs are there, and so those decisions could still be made.
So, whatever deficiency we would have, from the state revenue, we would make up for it from general fund?
Probably capital, is that correct?
No, it'd be from general fund.
General.
Frankly, right now, it'd be from fund balance, probably.
Fund
Yeah, it would be the same thing. I mean, we fund SPED the same way, right? We don't get all of our SPED dollars. We have to supplement. So it'd be a choice, right?
Interesting.
It's a good question. But
And is that question in this current year?
Both.
Both.
Yeah,
So
you
in
guys
this current
answered,
year,
yeah.
it would probably move away from that 6 million end fund balance and be lower. Our likelihood, our ceiling might be 5.8 million then. But next year, we would then include that in the budget development. We'll know by that time what our revenue is based on transitioning to kindergarten, and we'll program against that. Now, if we don't, let's just say we don't receive any funding for transition to kindergarten, the district and the board could approve a budget that operates 3 3 transition to kindergarten classrooms or something along those lines. And that's just speculative, that's not.
Right.
And that would come out of operating funds.
Right. Okay. I've got a question just for my personal knowledge. When we're looking at the budget, percentage-wise, how much would you say is, let's say for the past 5 years, state revenue versus the federal revenue?
Got feeling probably about 65 to 75%.
65 to 75?
State.
And the reason it fluctuates is because of the pandemic monies we did receive for a while.
Gotcha.
Those fluctuated quite a bit.
65 to 70 of state revenue, about 15% of local.
Balance is federal, right?
This is
This is-
from yesterday.
So would it be safe to say federal is 10 to 12? Or
Probably
10 to
easier way say
15?
Federal's about $3 million of our $60 million revenue.
Oh.
I think the easiest way to look at it.
Yeah.
So even smaller?
Yeah.
Oh,
It
okay.
used to be a little bigger when we had the pandemic funds, and now those are kind of,
Okay, interesting.
actually, I can tell you right here.
So I was gonna say, is that typical of,
3.697
is for the federal, is that typical, again, and if you don't know, that's fine. Again, this is just sorry, I'm gonna take a couple minutes for my own personal knowledge, because someday I'll be in the finance committee, then I'll learn more. But do you think it's typical statewide, for school districts, obviously, depending on the enrollment number, their budget, that, 60% is typical of their state revenue, or?
I don't know if I go more of the percent, but more just the components of the funds.
Okay.
We're pretty atypical to most schools. The only difference between us and maybe a Yakima school, maybe, I'm not picking on that area, but just they have a higher free and reduced population. They would be getting a lot more Title I dollars.
A lot more federal dollars.
A lot of federal dollars
Right.
we do not receive because of our free and reduced population.
Are the timber dollars federal?
That's the other part.
A community like Mount Baker probably has a higher percentage of federal.
Our timber dollars are like
Snohomish,
non-existent.
About $1 million.
Yeah.
or Cedro Woolley, I guess, yeah. Okay,
For the
interesting.
most part, everyone, we're treated pretty equally in terms of how we're funded. It's more the geography of where we're at, what kind of funds we're getting. Beyond that.
During the process of the levy promotion and things, we were stating that 78% of our operating budget is state, 6% is federal, and then 14% is the local tax. And as said, higher socioeconomic areas are going to depend more on federal resources.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
My guess wasn't quite as good as I usually think.
Yeah.
No, that's okay, yeah. But like you said, it fluctuates based on, the federal funds.
What is, I don't know, Director Verberg or Martinez, if you're gonna talk about this. If not, I would request, Ben, that you don't have to do it here. I'm not put you on the spot, but I would like to understand in broad strokes the reason for the reduced revenue and the reason for the 1.2 million projected overage of the budget. So I'm not asking you to do that right now, and I don't know if you guys are going to speak to that. If you are, great, but if not, then it would be, I wouldn't mind having a bulleted list of what you think are the reasons for that, because that, I mean, I don't mean to be like whatever in the board meeting, but that, even though our end fund balance ends up where we kind of want, it's still fairly significant to see revenues down by that much and then expenditures
I'd
up by
say-
that much as well.
I'd say that if you'll be able to answer that, then
He would be able to answer it in general terms and then
General?
follow up with bullets.
Yeah,
But 975,000 of that 1.2 is the money that the board transferred
we transferred.
into the general fund. So we were going to do that, into the capital fund. So we were going to do that in the 23-24 budget year.
Yep.
And so when we passed the budget for 24-25 in August, that was based on the intent that 975,000 expenditure would be in the 23-24 year. And so a big chunk of that 1.2 is that, and then another chunk in 300,000 or so, and again, Ben can follow up with bullets, is on an interest payment on previous 2009 debt that we paid off at the time
Okay.
last year of it.
And I see your question on the state and federal revenue side of the equation a little bit, those questions as well, so.
Yeah, there's a significant drop in federal revenue, which I'd love to understand what that is.
Yeah, and we explained this a little bit yesterday. The state, it's not gonna explain everything, but it'll give you a good idea. The state and the feds changed how they're funding child nutrition. We budgeted for child nutrition to be about 1.5 million, which frankly, I was telling you, I shared that, I think, when we adopted the budget, that it was less conservative than usual in terms of child nutrition. Normally, I'd be myself and be conservative, but our fund balance is strong, so it wasn't fair to our program to say, to budget a lower number. So I budgeted a bigger number, number one, and then number two, in the middle of the year, the state changed how they do it. So a lot of the, K-5 students eat free, a lot of that's being funded by the state, not the feds. When we built the budget, it was based on the feds doing it. So the
Okay.
state is covering a lot of that.
We anticipated revenue coming in from the federal government, and it got changed to the state government.
State revenue, so there's more state revenue than expected, but state revenue is still down.
Yes, and that's what I want to explain. So we shared
Okay.
yesterday. The other part is right now, we rely on a pretty complicated model with OSPI for how we do our prediction of special ed enrollment and funding. It's based on a strange tier structure that I've been doing this a long time, and I don't understand it. So we budget on what the tool tells us. It was about $500,000 off in special ed. So it's significantly off. So even with all that said and done.
Right.
And I like how David says it, when we adopt the budget, the minute we start the year, that budget's out the window.
That's wrong.
Best is just monitor how we're doing.
Yeah.
So that explains a lot of the state side of the world.
Can I just,
So I will be more conservative with the state as a result of that.
Yeah, okay.
so what does that process look like when the federal government and the state are be like, never mind, you have more money, so we're gonna pull back some?
I can keep going.
I can't.
It was a strange way that the budget was put together from the state, so everything Marilyn was sharing with me is the feds are gonna be the ones doing the K-5 portion of helping with the kids eat free, so I use that as the model in my federal side of the equation. But when we got through the budget cycle, Marilyn said no, so the state's part of it. So somewhere in their process, they decided we're covering 100% of it. I don't know if they were using pandemic dollars in the past, but for 24, 25, the state jumped in and did their part. I don't know if you remember a couple years ago, the state said, yes, we're gonna do K-5. But a year ago, we were getting over $1 million of federal revenue, so now we're down to about 900,000. So we've actually dipped.
So
And
did
I'm not sure why, but.
Feds say we don't want to give the lunch money anymore?
No, I really don't know, I can't speak
Okay.
for how.
Yeah, how the black box worked. And it may be that the federal government gave money to each state, and then the state determined how to distribute the money for
Could be
school
block
lunches.
granted
It's
to the state.
It's hard to
Block
know.
granted, yeah.
Yep.
That's a new word I learned today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
For a moment, I was panicked because I thought all of a sudden we have less federal money to kind of look from the state. Their allocation was significantly higher.
And back to the special ed tiered funding, there are bills on the floor now around special ed funding, and when you look at that, there's different levels of funding per student based on the percentage of time they spend in a general ed classroom versus special education classroom. And there's an incentive, there's a higher multiplier for students that spend more time in a general education classroom. And so then all of our individual education plans are analyzed, and we receive special ed education funding based on the demographic of our students and the services, the tiered service levels that they provide. They don't fund based on the cost of an individual student and the number of staff or the specialized equipment that would be needed. They just really only base it on those tiers.
So did I hear you right to say that the special education student who spends more time in a general education classroom would get more funding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
To incentivize you to put that child in that.
And there's and then sometimes supports are needed so that the learning is accessible for 100% of the students in that classroom. And those are just some of the tiers. It's not a huge difference, but it does spit out. That's what we're talking about when we wait till we have to input our students and then they spit back to say this is how much funding you're going to receive. And it's different at the preschool to kindergarten level, and then the middle level. There's tiers within that as well. So.
When we budget, all we ask for is how many special ed students we can have. It doesn't ask for the tier version. So that's why it spit out a number that's not even close to what we planned for.
Okay.
Yeah, because today, I think I learned, that's why I said I learned about block grants in Workday, because I think I was talking to a friend about the federal administration spitting something out along the lines of dismantling Department of Education,
Yep.
and how is that going to work?
Yep.
And that's where we were having some discussion and, saying maybe this is option one,
It's a double-edged sword,
yeah, so, yeah,
depending on where you are. Yep.
okay.
Yep.
All right, any other questions for?
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
All right.
So the second report is by Facilities Maintenance Director Kevin Burke. He'll be presenting information on the Asset Preservation Program. An asset preservation program is a systematic approach to ensure performance accountability, promote student health and safety by maintaining and operating building systems to their design. Excuse me.
You okay? Come on, there you go. Let's see. So I'll just start. The intent of the program is to ensure that taxpayer investment in state-assisted construction of school facilities is protected through a system of building maintenance. The APP applies school districts that receive state assistance for new school buildings accepted by local school board directors after December 31st, 1993. Fisher Elementary and Linden Middle School fall into that category. Participation in the APP is one requirement of the eligibility for future state assistance. Following his presentation, Resolution 0425 will be presented for consideration by the board. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Burke.
Hi, this is the riveting part of your day. I have taken everything that I did to come up with a condition report and boiled it down to one page that was submitted for your package. As was stated, this is a requirement for OSPI for our two newest schools, for Fisher and Linden Middle School. For some reason, when I first started, I decided to evaluate all the schools under the same lens. And once you do that, you don't go back. So that's why you have all the schools listed here.
Okay.
I guess I'm a glutton for punishment to have to go through every single one of them. So this is the packet that will go to OSPI. I'm more than happy to.
It's quite the packet.
But it basically takes all of the areas that we assess and brings them into one score at the end of the day. And so as you see, I included the scores that I presented in 22, 23, 23, 24, and then tonight. And you can see how the buildings all have gone down, and they will continue to do so. It's just basic wear and tear. That there is a formula that we have to use. It does say that the buildings have to be at a certain percentage at a certain time in their age. 30% is, or 30 years is when they age out, and there is no more model for that. But I just continue to extrapolate their current model to get to the numbers we have. So really, it's more, if anybody has any questions.
So this is, Kevin, this is like, it's asset depreciation essentially is what this is. Is that kind of what you're modeling?
It is, except they like to call it asset appreciation.
Okay.
Asset preservation.
Right.
But in reality, it is depreciating the value of the buildings. And
Right.
where that's important really isn't where it comes down to SCAP funding.
Right.
For us to continue to get the maximum amount of SCAP funding, we need to be able to show that the buildings have been well maintained, but
Right.
have deteriorated to a certain level. So this is kind of a double-edged sword for me, because I'm reporting out that the buildings have gotten worse,
Right,
but my job is to keep them from getting worse.
right, right, right.
Can you walk through one example of one of these 3-year, like a component at one of the schools?
We look at, I think it's 19 different components. Mine doesn't have the list. I don't know if the one I gave you does. And we evaluate every single one of, I evaluate those components as areas. So I'll go through and reevaluate all the foundations, all the slabs. I look at all the walls, I look at the fixtures, I look at, are we getting cracks in walls? Are the cracks that are reported, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, that at Fisher, which have slowed greatly, but we find cracks in the floors and cracks in the walls. I'll take measurements of them, find out if they're continuing to grow, if they're settling right. We look down at everything from wallpaper to is our water and gas infrastructure still sound? Or what are we doing with our HVAC communications? It basically is just pulling back the blinds and taking a look at everything you can see.
I did have a quick question on that, specifically Fisher, because last time you were here in April, Fisher, you had mentioned, was settling and there was some cracking in the walls. There's a compaction issue. Is that
There could be, it could be a
Potentially.
result of a compaction issue.
is that something that's you mentioned? Is still ongoing, or is it something that's
No, the cracks in the floors have all stopped.
Good, okay.
Their measurements are just where they need to be and where they should be. We are getting some cracks in different walls above door frames, which tends to tell me that wall is starting to shift a little bit or has settled. Doesn't mean that it is shifting apart, it just means that it moved. And once it moved and you get a crack in the sheetrock or you get a crack in one of the headers, it's just there. It doesn't mean the wall didn't shift back. It doesn't repair itself once it goes back. It's just a nature of the game. You can almost go into almost any building and see wall cracks, floor cracks, ceiling cracks.
I have a couple things. First, thank you for always making sure there's locks on the bathroom stalls, even though they're always removed, so.
We checked them when we were there.
Yeah, we checked when we were there. And then Kevin, can you just a little, well, it's an important thing, but, and then can you just explain 30 years if something ages out? Because in my mind, I think I interpret that different.
So at 30 years, the model stops showing me a number that it's supposed to be at.
Okay.
So right now, the model at 30 years is, I believe, at 61 to 62 as the overall score. So you see that, like, for example, if you go to the very bottom, Main Street Campus's auditorium, and David pointed out that I think I have my years wrong, because the auditorium was built somewhere in 1920.
Yeah.
And it's down to 33, but the model stops at 61. But again, it's 100 plus years old, and so you can just kind of follow the river and keep reducing.
Okay.
So when I say it ages out, the model ages out. It just
Not the
doesn't-
building, the model
Yeah.
does.
So you just extrapolate from
Yeah.
the past into the future?
I mean, I know that if it's 100% at year one and 61% at year 30, at year 60, this percentage is gonna continue on.
okay?
I don't have any questions for you, Kevin, but I just want to point out to the board, the high school currently sits at just under 50%. The 300 wing, which is obviously not there yet, but pretty darn close. Okay, so a couple years ago, we were at 62-ish, 60 to 62. Now jump up to ISOM. ISOM a couple years ago was 72, is now down to 60. The reason I point this out is might be helpful in a month or two when we sit down and we talk about facilities plan and that sort of thing. So sort of harken back to these numbers as we try to prioritize what we think we need to do about facilities.
And that biotech lab is beautiful,
Yeah,
obviously well-maintained.
And they take very good care of it.
Yeah, it's very nice.
it is nice.
They helped design it,
Yeah,
shows all the, when people do that,
yeah,
take good care.
it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
Hey,
Using the biotech as an example.
Yeah.
The biotech's score was able to remain the same, because at the
Noticed
same time that I was doing the inspection, we ran into an electrical issue there. There was a ghost, and that just means that there's a problem that's traveling. It shows up at certain times, it disappears at times. Usually when I show up, it's not there, or when they're not there. Of
course.
And so we were able to actually spend quite a few hours tracing that down. What we found out it was one of the extensions for the power strips. It had lost its neutral, and so it was causing this. The reason that it wasn't a problem when I was there is because they were unplugging them and putting them away. So every time they plugged it back in, it created this loss of a neutral in the system, and that's not a good thing. So I took the biotech lab at the last minute back up in score because I didn't see it as being actually the biotech lab now as a problem. It was that extension. So
Oh, got it.
sometimes we can find and fix them, and so the numbers will go back up throughout the year.
Okay.
I have a question for the biolab. Let's say we are at a point where the bond passes, we got money for the high school, imagine, and biotech lab, is that something that could be used, because it's pretty new? Are we, again, have we read every word of the facilities plan? So let me know if it's in there. But what's the plan for this lab?
We have studied that facility with an architect, and there are some options. The messaging I've given to high school leadership and staff who are committed to that, we also built that with some community donation from a family, is that there's a commitment to replace the square footage and the design and the materials that are inside of there in a new build. Whether it gets protected, I didn't give that assurance as it says today, but I gave assurance that we would replicate the biotech lab in a new build. We'd either repurpose some of the information or some of the equipment and things, but it would be replaced if it needed to be replaced. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a facility that could be?
That's what we were out there for with the architect and a structural engineer, and they kind of everything's possible.
Okay.
It's just,
And then it was
Yeah.
a decision might need to be made whether it's
Worth it?
or easier to do it, replace it.
Right, and just use the equipment and
Yep,
whatnot.
yep.
Okay, gotcha.
I have a-
Thank you.
I'm gonna sell it.
And then you can make a donation.
It's a
Yeah.
Project Hope.
In your professional opinion, do you think the auditorium is worth restoring? And I'm apart from the sentimental value, you're the guy, so what is your,
So when I sat in your seat,
yeah.
I voted to tear it down. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
all right.
And you stand firm on that.
At the time I did.
He is
knowing
part.
Knowing, as,
Because it's like, okay, we could theoretically invest $15 million into restoring that and making
And
it,
it would take that.
Yeah.
That's the problem. The problem is that right now, to make it earthquake safe, to make it ADA compliant, and to make sure that it fits all the current building standards that we'd have to bring it up to, I would say that $15 15 million would probably be the minimum.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I mean, we're
Yeah.
gonna have to do an exoskeleton on the outside to get the, that's the only way we could get an elevator in there. It's gonna have to be an external elevator, so you're gonna have to, you know, it's like if you're at the Hilton and you're going out over a plaza, you're looking out because the elevator is outside the building.
Right.
That's what would have to happen here. But all the plumbing has to come out, all the electrical has to come out. The transition from the bottom to the top of the seating is not ADA compliant, it's not at the proper angle, and so that would all have to come out to be set. I really like the chairs, so we'd probably put the chairs back.
They're super
Maybe
comfortable.
The wooden,
The wooden.
the
They're
wood ones.
pretty. They're not very comfortable.
Well, they keep people from staying long.
That's why you like the chairs?
Okay.
Maybe a middle school band concert in there for me.
Yeah.
I don't like those chairs.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
But
Yeah.
I like the architecture. I really do. I would love to restore that building. From, again,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
that seat, it was a no.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That's great.
I'd like to just add on to that, is that one of the things that I appreciate about the board is the openness to consider things and to work to engage the community on these important decisions. And so I think it's a question that the board needs to ask going forward, and I'm glad you asked it.
Well, and especially
And
given.
don't assume the answer is the answer.
No, that's, yeah, I think,
Yeah.
especially given I mean, we talked about visiting the drama program is very important. We talk about how amazing our band is, and so performing arts center is a big deal in our community, so. Just trying to discern where do we go from here, and what is the community value, so.
Yep.
And I want to be very clear
Yeah.
that I support those programs as well.
Right.
And I wouldn't even dream about getting rid of it until we had a replacement for
course.
it. Until the building itself starts to talk and say, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
A la Kingdom.
Are you a building whisperer? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah.
You know, people catch me out standing there talking to them all day, every day. So,
Does this auditorium have, this is maybe a rumor that I've heard, since we're talking about community, forgive my pronunciation, asbestos?
Asbestos?
There we go.
Does it have
Yeah.
asbestos?
Asbestos.
I would say that based on its age, I'm sure that it does in insulation around piping and that. It may be in some of the glue that holds the lath and plaster together in the upper floors. It's possible it's there. We haven't really gotten that thoroughly tested. But one of the things about asbestos is that people have to understand that as long as it's stationary, it's perfectly fine. There's no health risk to asbestos. When asbestos becomes a health risk is when you start moving it or the fibers start to fly. Otherwise, you could sit next to an asbestos pipe. I used to work in water associations, and I can't tell you the number of them that have asbestos cement pipe.
Oh, yeah.
So the water's flowing right through asbestos, you know. The asbestos is holding the pipe together, and it's just flowing right through it. It's perfectly safe.
Okay, because the reason why I asked that is the removal of asbestos is going, never mind my pronunciation.
That's fine.
Is going to be expensive, right?
Yep.
Then, okay.
That's cost.
part of the cost,
And time
yeah.
consuming.
That's cost.
And time consuming, yeah.
It's abatement, yeah.
Can I ask, Kevin, with the passing of the award of the grant and the upgrades, would that have an impact on a Vospec score? Will it slow it down? Could it potentially
Go up.
increase
I'm
it?
sure, I can tell you, it would rise. The score would rise. It would get better.
From year to year, so a year from now, if those upgrades are completed, it could be higher than 64?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. And a condition of accepting the grant was that we have to be done by the end of June.
Oh, sweet, yeah.
So the next 120 days, you know, yeah.
June 25?
Oh, I wish. No, it has to be
No.
done.
No, that,
Because we've put our name, I haven't said this yet, but We've also put a place marker in the next year's funding. If the state does fund this again.
Sure.
We are gonna be in that competitive range again.
Yeah.
We're less likely to get one because they don't like to give that kind of money back to back, but, yeah, sometimes I get lucky, but, yeah.
To clarify, it is by June 2025, this June.
Yes, June
Yeah.
2025. I
Yeah.
think it's 26.
Yeah, no.
This June, it has to be complete.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
Yeah. Huge. All right, any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, is that it for reports? Okay, let's move on to action items.
Following the report, Resolution 0425 Asset Preservation Program is being presented to the board for consideration. By passing an APP resolution, the board is committing the district to preserve their state-assisted buildings through a systematic maintenance plan. Additionally, the district is committing to assess the condition of the buildings annually and report on the findings to the school board at a public meeting. My recommendation is approval of Resolution 0425 Asset Preservation Program.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 0425 Asset Prevention Program.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded to approve the asset preservation program. Any discussion? Questions?
Did we have something like this last year? Is it a yearly thing? Oh, we did.
April
Gotcha.
2024.
Thank you. Yeah, no more questions.
Okay, all right. Do advisory vote
Yes.
this? Okay, all right, advisory vote? Aye. And vote of the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The resolution carries by voice vote. Okay, now I'm going to get confused here. So now, we are going to move on to
New item,
new item.
approval.
This is approval of the capital, of the 6-year plan. All right.
Can we take a break?
Oh,
Can I motion for a 5-minute break, please?
motion made,
Seconded.
seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, we'll take a 5-minute break.
You might want to do that again. Call the meeting.
Call the meeting to order because my mic was off. So at this point, we're going to do something a little unorthodox. I'm going to give Superintendent VanderYacht and Director Owsley a chance to present some numbers on the impact fees, so that the board, when we get to the point of discussing the 6-year plan and the associated impact fees, we have all the information. So just want to clarify that this is informational. I'd like us to refrain from discussions that we should have during the resolution portion of the, just if you have questions for Ken or David, that's great, but just, this is really meant for informational purposes only, so. All right,
Sounds good. Yeah, so I think the outcome of last meeting, there was some interest in kind of impact, how many developments are we thinking about? What's that cost going to be? And so Director Owsley and I have worked with the city, and he's,
You want me to go up there?
yep.
Well, I sent you guys this. Scroll it up. So I sent you guys this, but let me just walk you through it. Along the top here are, you see, single-family residence, multi-family residence. Then we have low and high. These represent the low and high estimates of number of units built at Pepin Creek. Okay? That's the only data that I got for figuring out sort of how many units so that we can sort of try to extrapolate the value of impact fees. That presentation from the city had work being done in 2 years, 4 years, 6 years. Then there's a break because a significant amount of infrastructure has to be done. Then 8 and 10, more infrastructure work, and then 12 and 15. So these are the actual numbers from that report, and you guys all got that in your email as well. These are the actual high and low numbers. And then what I did from that is I extrapolated based upon the previous 5 years of data that's in the 6-year plan. How many, over the last 5 years, how many were multifamily residents, how many were single-family residents that would generate impact fees? The vast majority of the buildings, of the apartments and homes built over that 5-year period of time would generate impact fees, okay? And that's this number down here, about 49% of those homes were single-family residents, and about 48% were multi-family residents. Does that make sense so far?
It does. I'm surprised at that split. I would have expected the single-family residents to be a lot higher, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I expected that too, but these numbers right here are where that comes from, and
Yeah.
those numbers are present in the 6-year,
Yep,
sort of the appendix of that.
Yep.
So that's where that is a multiplier then on these numbers, because we know that not every one of those units is gonna be a two-bedroom house, and not every one of those units is gonna be a two-bedroom apartment. Some of them are gonna be single-bedroom apartments. I didn't have from the city any data that said, here's how many single-family homes, here's how many apartment buildings, so they don't have that. They have some sense of, like, here's where townhomes might go, apartment buildings, et cetera. So a lot of assumptions, okay? So that's what this tries to do, is try to estimate based upon these numbers here, okay? And those are the two numbers that are in the 6-year plan that we had talked about and we plugged in. The 6992 is a 75% reduction of the actual fee that was calculated, and the 10,555 is a 75%. Sorry, it's a
25% discount, right, yeah.
Sorry,
Yep.
I should reverse my formula, but you get what I'm saying.
Yep,
So those are the
yep.
numbers. So what we can do, and what I thought would be good to do, is just kind of tumble these numbers around and see where we get. And so if I kind of just zoom this out a little bit, those numbers right now, over the course of 15 years, would produce about $10.6 million in impact fees. And that sum right there is calculated off the high numbers, okay? So I didn't calculate the low, I just figured we'd go with what do we think is the maximum. But I can plug any number in here. You remember I was suggesting maybe we make these the same. So if I make those the same, sorry, and you'll see that it drops to 8.5,
Yep.
roughly 8.5 million. So roughly a $2 million difference over 15
Over a 15-year period,
over a
yeah.
15-year period of time. So, and then you can see that, then that becomes a 50% discount on the multifamily. So, it's $10 million, or it's $8.5 million, or it's some other number, because this is all just estimates based upon city data and past history. That's what I want to present, and then if you said to me, well, gosh, Ken, what would it be if we put $5,000 in there, what would that mean? Or what if we put the full number, what would that mean? If you're not interested, we don't have to go any further.
I'll leave that. I guess the question is, does everybody have the information they need once we get to the discussion portion? And seeing lots of yeses, okay.
I make packets as well if anyone wants.
Yeah.
something.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
It's the-
So does anyone want another number in there?
Let's see, let's check. Can I share it with you?
We're good? I'm coming back?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do have, in the spirit of information, I did have a conversation with the city planner as well. And so I will enter into the board information. The development around the Linen Academy property, the former church, it is scheduled for 134 units. There are 109 lots, and so they're scheduled for 134 units within those, so a mix of single and multi-family. Otherwise, there's a lot of infill, and there's some private property that's being held by families and that may be developed, but there's been no discussion about developing property. I found a very interesting conversation that the area around I always get it wrong in my family too, food pavilion? The food pavilion area, the plaza in that area, that is all coded in a way that could be developed with multifamily units. And so we discussed Barclay, the Barclay area where there's condominiums and apartments, and there's no plans for that, but there is a viability for that to be happening in the future. So if you've been to Barclay where you have restaurants and then you have multi-unit homes, and so their codes in that area are for high density, and there are properties within there that are developable for that type of.
Help me to understand where you're talking. At Food
Barclay
Pavilion,
Pavilion?
the north side?
19th, oh, sorry.
At Food Pavilion, where?
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
exactly the north side?
Yeah, let's say
Like a bus
19th on Front Street, there's a veterinarian's office there.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, both sides of 19th going down the hill.
Right on the top.
Now,
Okay.
the Crick side has a lot of challenges for
Yeah.
development,
For sure.
but even that there are some properties that then are would be on the west side.
Yeah.
And even buildings that are currently maybe buildings could still also become,
Right.
multifamily
Right.
units. It's
So you're
coded
not
for
talking
that.
about where Napa is, it's down below.
I'm talking probably Napa all the way down.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yes.
see.
Yeah, that whole
Oh.
area.
Yeah.
Not Napa.
Well, no, and don't
Well, they probably moved, right?
don't take those are codes.
Yeah,
So
I
there
get it,
is
I
the
get it.
potential,
Yeah.
but there was probably something at Barclay before.
yeah.
We see all those apartments too. So I found that interesting.
Well, I could see, on the east side though, there's a little section there before the creek comes in. That there's space there too.
So they've talked about this code of high density being in walking distance to the services, and that would fall within that category. Another
It
statement.
includes WTA too, right?
Yeah.
That area that I think I read in the news, some development by WTA, on that WTA land station.
There is a, it's been in the newspapers previously around targeted housing toward service workers, and in a relationship with Catholic Community Services has kind of a contract
Okay.
within that. Indications are that there's not, that's not imminent. There's some delays regarding resources and funding for that. One of the interesting things I just want to share with the board is that there are not a lot of construction opportunities within the city currently. A lot of it's moving to Everson and other areas. There's an argument that it is actually a good time to implement impact fees, because there aren't a lot of development that will kind of turn maybe those cost analysis that were going on. And so there's this downturn, establish, and when developers come back around, everything's established and costs are known. And I didn't ask for that. She, offered that information. That's kind of the current environment we're in. And
That's
so,
helpful.
that's what I wanted to share.
Did you guys get any, and maybe I'm not understanding this correctly, on the Pepin housing area, on the west side, there's single-family lots, there's single-family duplexes and lots, but on the west side of Double Ditch, I didn't see in the plan anything that was looking to be developed within these 15 years. Am I reading that wrong, or is that?
I mean, the plan is the plan, but it came with a caveat that these are estimates and that
course.
they don't force developers to build.
Well, and the reason that
What I'm saying is the city's not mandating that this is single-family homes or this is, right? So
Right.
who knows what it's gonna be.
Well, I'm mentioning that because that brings not quite a third, but let's just say conservatively, it's an extra 25% of homes that could be developed. So that, realistically, this number could be pretty conservative for funds that would come in. Am I making sense there? I'm talking about this area here. That's all I'm saying. These units aren't accounted for. where in the.
Meaning that the multifamily number could
Single
be a
family
bit higher.
or multifamily, because this is single family lots, this is single family and duplexes.
And so I think what you're saying is in that 15-year analysis, there are no units that are counted out of this area.
I think this RS 72 is. I'd have to. I don't have the plan in front of me, but
Yeah.
but I know these ones aren't at the very least. So I'm just saying that these could be conservative.
What you're saying, yeah, this could be on the low end of estimates,
yeah.
is what you're thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
Martinez, okay.
You have it up, it's on a paywall. Linden City Council voted to annex 21 acres along Double Ditch Road at its March 3rd meeting. The land, it just is adjacent to Benson Park. And after that, I can't read anymore. Does anyone know? What's that about? Please share.
$60 a year.
Yeah, nice. Director Brar, that I did clarification. That annex area is included in this Pepin Creek projected
already here,
outlook.
okay.
It's already included
Gotcha,
within
okay.
that. Yep.
I always forget my login. So.
I know, you guys
You're not
change
bad.
your system.
Oh, I know. Sometimes.
Change your
Sometimes
system.
though.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right, are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
I think at this point, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the 6-year capital facilities plan with impact fees, right? Is that what we're
You're
doing?
just going to approve the plan. If we get a second, there'll be discussion, and that is when
Okay.
amendment will be made to adjust the fee toward finalization.
Okay,
If-
thank
I'll
you.
move that we approve the 6-year capital facilities plan.
Okay, motion made, motion seconded. Director Hickman, discussion.
Yes, I would further move to amend the 6-year plan to change the multifamily impact fee number from the 10,000, whatever it is.
555.
To 6,992, making the single-family number and the multifamily number the same. And again, my rationale for that is the same as, well, first of all, let me say that at the last board meeting, I said I was very concerned about the cost of rent, as I was seeing and dealing with every week somebody who is struggling to pay their rent, worried about getting evicted. So I was worried about adding more cost to that, and wondering if impact fees were even the right thing to do. I've since flopped back, okay, after conversations with citizens and different folks, developers even, who have said that they think that impact fees aren't really going to slow growth or cause a huge impact to them. However, I do still feel that philosophically we're talking about an impact to the school district, and we want to collect funds based upon that impact. And the calculated impact for multifamily units and single-family impacts, or single-family units, is the same, or close enough to be the same. So I don't necessarily feel that it's fair to charge more to the multifamily unit, even though some could argue that the multifamily unit is not going to pay as much in property taxes over time, and that it's a developer who really pays it. And so anyway, that's my rationale for making that motion. Or maybe I should have waited until a second.
I'll second.
So,
Okay, you've got a
well, there we
second.
go.
Can you repeat the numbers for me one more time?
I'm moving that we set the numbers to $6,992 for both
I see.
single
Okay.
family and multifamily.
Okay.
Which is what
Is
percentage
it
of
25% for single family and for
It's
multi?
up there, right? It's a 25% on the single and it's a 50% on the multi.
Well,
Right?
it won't be exactly that.
But,
Yeah, that's,
it's, yeah.
I just threw those percentages in last minute a second ago.
That's
Sorry.
40, like 50, yeah, 49.6. So,
Calculate it on your own if you like. I'm less concerned about the percent personally than the actual number.
So I just wanted, and this is just for consideration, from 2019 to 2023, over this 5 years, there's 345 single-family units that were generated and 139 multifamily units. And so the revenue for that would have been about 1.6 million for single-family and 2.4 million for multifamily. And Is that, no?
I don't think so. I think you might have stated the single-family three-bedroom units, 345, is that what you said?
345, yes.
Yep. And then there were 342 multifamily.
340.
And then what happened is we get a generation rate, and so then that 345 single family generated 150 new students, and the multifamily generated 139.
I
So it's
see.
the 139 and the 150
Right,
are those two numbers.
Okay.
right.
Which is really why your SGR is roughly the same, because they're close enough the same to be sort of rounding errors on the SGR.
I love the analysis.
I love this. I just,
Great.
I'm not entirely sure where I land on that. I think that we do need to have some kind of fees. What numbers whether is it 10,000, because even 25 is that 6,992 for single family, or the 10,555 for the multi, which is what we have written. But I'd be okay with that number as well, correct, Allison? So but I'd love to hear the other director's thoughts on this.
I'll let others go, yeah.
I was the second, so I agree with Ken.
I'm gonna, what do you call that? I'm gonna be the opposing voice here.
Okay.
I'm okay with what is presented. And some of the reasoning for that is, growth pays for growth, so I'm gonna borrow your quote. And being on the planning commission, there's one thing that I have experienced is growth is not gonna slow. There's demand, there's legislation coming for a need for more housing. So it might look like it, the zoning can change at any time, at any point. There's that. So we've been having these meetings, and we are in a big comp plan update right now, right? With the county too, and our city. So looking at all of that, and then I sent you guys a file that I saw of the fees that the city is getting for impact fees, right? For the different categories.
Yeah,
And
that was helpful, yeah.
if you add all of those are way more than what these are. So, personally speaking, I would say I personally don't want to impact, any or burden any of the already burdened citizens of our city. But then again, because I'm on this side of the table, I would think for Linden. And I don't think there's, to what Superintendent VanderYacht said, whether, growth-wise, we're not going to see, well, hang on, I might be misquoting. I guess my response would be, not response, but comment would be, I think it's always better late than never, if we had done this before, again, right? Regret is going to be, we don't know what's going to happen in terms of development. Like I said, again, just having that insight, being on the planning commission, I don't personally speaking, I don't see the growth slowing down. So, with all that being said, I, definitely would like to impose the impact fees. And then, as far as number goes, I'm okay with what was presented. So,
And I'd just like to add, this is a 6-year plan. So there's, for a 15-year projected build, make a different decision later. I just think that
That's a good point. That's a good point.
This is a good place to start off, just kind of get a feel for how it really works.
And my argument isn't that there isn't going to be growth, and isn't that growth shouldn't pay for growth. I agree with all that. My only argument is I think the numbers should be the same, because I think the student generation rate is the same. And so I think if we are going to tax the people, which is what we're doing, we are going to tax the people, we should tax the people fairly. So that's why I would argue for them to be the same. I'm not even that hung up on what the actual number is. If somebody felt that should be a little bit higher, I would be open to say make those $8,000 a piece. But I do feel strongly that, again, to reiterate, we're talking about impact fees, we're talking about the impact on the school district that those homes generate. So
you got a fair point.
that's yeah. So I agree. There is going to be growth. I think that's true. So, anyway,
Can you give me?
Director Barr, can you clarify when you say you support what's proposed, do you support the what's proposed in the amendment?
The
both
original?
being
No,
699.2
sorry,
or
the
what?
one that's already in the plan.
The 10,000?
Yeah, okay,
thank you.
okay. All right.
So I'm just crunching numbers here. So you mentioned 6 years. I think that's good. I just want to give you guys two numbers. The 15 years. If we go with what Director Owsley proposed, the difference between that 25% and the 2550 is 3,298,438 at 15 years difference. So that's the difference you would see. And then at 6 years though, the difference is 791,625. So it's something. It's not nothing,
Yeah.
but we're not talking.
I mean, if Mr. Burke were here, I think we could agree that there's always a need for
Sure. Yeah.
repairs
Dollars
and-
can be used.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
always. So,
but this can't be used for
This can't be
repairs.
used for that.
This can only be used
Yep.
for growth.
oh, for new buildings only?
You can't fix a roof with.
There's a few other things, but
Okay,
yes,
that's
for
something.
capacity to meet new growth.
So adding new classrooms?
Adding new
Permanent?
classrooms, adding new classroom on the wing.
Right.
Or
instead of-
Replacing
Portables.
replacing a school, but adding square footage for additional classrooms,
Yes.
then, because impact fees isn't gonna pay for a new school.
Right.
It is
yeah, we know
only
that.
going to
It's
assist.
incremental.
Right.
But, okay, am I correct in saying, like, my most recent conversation was the cost for an expansion for fifth grade wing at BVE to get them out of portables would be $1 million plus or minus? Is that correct? 2 million? 2 million?
No,
1.5?
I think we had 6.7 million.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, $1 million sounds really low.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what I
yeah.
was thinking
I
too.
think it was 6.7 million.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's-
it's more significant than that.
And that includes recouping some SCAP money, state assistance money, so it might be even a little bit more than that.
Talking of SCAP.
Yep.
We get that money for a 30-year bond, right?
Yeah,
Right.
we would
So-
also get it for a capital levy.
Okay.
There are calculations that happen depending
Right.
on what the money is used for.
The 6-year capital levy, right?
Yeah,
It's not the funding method that drives that, it's what you're doing.
what you're building.
What you're building. So let's just say high school, same amount. Let's just go with the same. Do you remember what the SCAP money was?
The SCAP money we're estimating is $30 million
$30 million.
on a replacement of Lennon High School.
That's the new number.
That
The old number was lower than
the old number was about 24 million.
24 million.
It has gone up because of construction costs.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, Superintendent VanderYacht, or maybe you know. Was there a time requirement for impact fees to use that money? I can't.
10
10
years.
years.
10 years,
Okay,
right?
that's
Yeah.
Okay.
What happens if you don't use it all in 10 years?
I do not know the answer to that
Okay.
question.
Money.
I
never have.
Whoever is on the board will figure out a way to expend the money. If the growth doesn't come in, we don't collect very much money. We also don't have a great need to expand because we can't use it on the projects that we've already identified a need for.
Right.
That's right.
And so again, if let's say no growth happens, we don't collect any money. It's fine. We don't have an increased need for space
Right.
because of there hasn't been a growth that has taken place.
What if, so let me lay this on you, Director Martinez.
Yeah.
So we're talking about roughly $17,000 in impact fees per unit, right? Between the two.
Yes.
And there's, right? So what if we did 8,000 or 8,500 on both? That would probably overcome that delta.
I see what
Yeah,
you're saying.
let's try that.
You said 85 for both?
Yeah. And that would overcome the delta
Yeah.
between bringing that 10,400 down
Yeah, I see what you're
and
saying.
still meet my concern of being fair.
Being fair, I agree.
I don't know.
We have your,
Can I amend my amendment?
I don't think we can get,
Wait, so Director Owsley?
Yeah.
You said 8,500.
$8,500 in both numbers.
The amendment that is open does not require, another person can make a motion to amend.
okay. Amend the amendment?
Yep.
Okay.
It would just be amend the,
You haven't
it would,
given your, oh, sorry.
sorry, it would just be to amend the 6-year capital facilities plan,
Okay, got it. Okay.
like Director Owsley has already done.
I think he's already done. Okay. Oh, thank you, Director Brock. No, yeah, I was just listening to all of you. No, I agree with Director Hickman. I think this is I think the thing that we have to keep in mind is perspective, right? Number one, these numbers they're gonna be wrong, just like any forecast. It all depends on the rate but I also do agree with Director Owsley. I'm also sensitive to the, and I said this in the last meeting, having a young person, a young adult in your house and trying to figure out the prospect of them moving out and getting on their own and how expensive it is. I am very sensitive to the cost burden, especially on multifamily residents. And so I do appreciate that, and I agree with that. As to what number we settle on, I think I like this number. I'm fine with adjusting it upward for both as well. So I think that's the right thing to do, though.
I, just for the record, I would like to also state that after the discussion and looking at where we're leading at, I'm okay with having it at equal, but with the condition of upping that number. So,
Okay.
not that it's necessary. I mean, I could vote no, but just
Is
wanted
that all right?
to
Yeah.
put it out there.
Yeah.
Would it be?
Throw it.
Would it be? I'd like to hear the board's thoughts on what you guys think of potentially increasing single-family residents to be at a higher number. Let's say hypothetically that 8,500, and having the multifamily residents at that lower number at 6,992. I kind of believe that that's addressing some of the concerns that I hear the board is having with the potential for housing for young adults.
Let's do this first.
Yeah.
So this 8.4 million is the number with them both at 6,992. Okay, so this number is if we make them both 8,500, which I believe, I'm gonna jump over to this other one. Yeah, so it's just 300, it's just 300 dollars lower than what's in the thing. So that's what that number would be. Okay, so let's take that, drop that over there. Okay,
These special values.
so there's that number now. So this is 6,992, and this is 8,500. Now you suggested, Director Martinez, that we take this from the 6,992?
No, the
their
opposite,
way,
the inverse
right?
of that, the multifamily residents.
6,992.
Yeah.
And leave this one at 8,500?
Sure, let's just see what that does.
So you see that number there. So now you're at 9.4. So you're about whatever that is, about a mil off, less than a mil.
Yeah, so on the final number, maybe bigger impact, on the fee itself, but not much movement in the 15-year number, and then even less than the 6-year number. Right?
Can I also throw out this? I'm always hoping that times are gonna get even better.
That's right.
So start low and
Yes.
then see what happens in 6 years. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's a valid point too.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay, wish we had a magic.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the thing. I don't think there's a magic number here.
Yeah, I think just to go with what you guys have said, I'd be comfortable with staying at that 6,992 for both.
Okay.
And then times will probably inevitably get better,
That's right.
and
Hopeful.
then we'll go from there.
Well, I think that's what's on the table, right?
So,
Okay.
And we have a second.
We have a second. Any more discussion? Okay. All right, I'm going to call for a vote. Advisory vote on this?
You bet.
Okay, all right,
You
let's do
bet.
an advisory vote. Advisory vote on the amended number. Aye, okay. So now we're going to vote, the board. All in favor of the amended fee to 6,992 for both, single family. All in favor, say aye.
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 Wait, I have a question.
Yes, oh, sorry, go ahead
If I
before
say
we vote.
no, does that look like I'm voting no on the facilities plan? 'Cause
No,
that's-
No.
that's the amendment.
That'll be a separate.
We haven't
That
voted
would
on
be
the
a separate,
facilities
right?
plan yet.
Okay,
Yes.
so no.
Okay, So, I said aye, so we have 4 and 1 no, okay. So the,
For the record, because I wanted higher, so. just
sure, yep.
wanted to put that.
Okay, so now we have we've approved a new number to include in the 6-year plan. Okay, so now, we're gonna vote.
Motion as amended.
Motion as amended to approve the capital facilities 6-year plan. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved,
Second.
seconded, any discussion?
Bill, just to clarify, my no. You heard me, okay, great, sorry. I just want to make sure it doesn't come, just in case you do code, I mean, it's, yeah.
All right, so we have a motion, have a second. Any discussion further?
No.
Hearing none. All right, advisory vote on the 6-year plan. Aye. Vote from the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So it carries by voice vote 5-0.
I'd just like to state for the record that the first time we talked about this was February 8th of 2024, and so it's been a road to get to this position, so I'm very pleased with where we've gotten.
Here, here.
High five.
Yeah.
It's an answer to the call of the community to think outside of the box, the responses we got during the bond runs, so. thank
All right,
you.
so now we have, next, we have one more, right? Resolution 0325 to adoption of capital facilities plan and authorization request to school impact fees.
If I read it. Whatcom
go
County
ahead.
and the city of Linden have requested that the district update its capital facilities plan to allow each jurisdiction to adopt it by reference. Included in your packet is a draft of the 6-year capital facilities plan that has now been approved, which serves as a guide for planning capital projects and determining the district's eligibility for receiving school impact fees. Board approval of this resolution will result in the adoption of the capital facilities plan that has been approved and authorize superintendent to request and work with the city and county to request the collection of impact fees. I recommend approval of resolution 0325.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 0325.
Make a motion to approve resolution 0325.
Motion made by Director
I
McKenzie.
second.
Seconded by Director Berard. All right, any discussion? All right, hearing none, advisory vote. Aye. All right, vote by the board. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Resolution 0325 carries by a voice vote of 5-0. All right, that takes care of our action items, right? Yes. All right, good work, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of work that went into it.
Yep.
It's been amazing.
You're here.
Yep.
All right, board committee reports. What's up first? Is that legislative?
Legislative,
All right,
Okay.
Director Hickman.
So since our last meeting, President Berberg and I have had a chance, well, he spoke with Representative Rule in regards to our resolution. And then we both followed up with Representative Timmons. And since I was in the one with Timmons, I'll speak to that. But he was asking if we felt like there was any amendment that could be put forth by the board. And I guess I get more emotional about it than I probably should. But, you know, the bipartisan pass of the parental rights, I think spoke a lot to what people want to see and what parents want for education and transparency and establishing trust. So I just told him I don't see an amendment, which I will be happy with. And I'll let President Berber speak to his conversation with Alicia, but I just said no, and I think it's kind of I want to choose my words carefully. I think that promises were made when that was a bipartisan pass, and I think that they're eroding credibility and portraying the trust of parents and stakeholders who felt like that was a good thing that they wanted to see passed, and then just all the lawfare that came after it. knowing that this legislative session was going to come around and they were going to undermine that, just the democratic process with requiring, having an emergency clause, which would remove the referendum process. And then, and then just because they have such party loyalty or conformity, and they refuse to break rank, that it sounds like they're going to support that just because their party supports that, even though their party supported a bipartisan pass of the parental rights bill. So, yeah,
Can I ask you a question about that, if you're done on that topic?
sure I am now.
Oh, sorry. Keep going.
Nope.
I don't know if this is a question or a statement, but what possible amendment could he expect us to accept when that particular bill seems to be, you correct me if I'm wrong, but seems to be a direct attack on the parental rights bill?
Yeah, that's kind of what
So the
we
amendment
said.
would be just pass a blank piece of paper because nothing more needs to be done, right? I mean,
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we ended
And there
up.
was nothing about it that I would be happy with.
yeah.
Like, I feel like last year was what people wanted, and now you're just undermining that by saying we're going to pass these other bills that would remove parental rights and just the transparency piece. And a lot of it was like, 48 hours if there was like something criminal or, an investigation, like, there wasn't. You can offer something else.
That's also already, when you say that last bit, you mean like if there's some suspect of a parent is engaging in abuse, and so that's why we might withhold information. Is that what you meant when you said that?
Well, that's already a thing.
That's
Well,
already.
no,
in
that's
there.
what I was going
Yeah.
to say. That's why I
Right.
was clarifying, because that's already already part of state law.
That's right.
Right.
It's already in
Okay,
there.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so my conversation with Representative Rule was, it was very good. I will say, we were scheduled for 15 minutes, and I thought it was going to be, a very rushed job, as busy as they are during session. But to her credit, I will say this for Representative, she's very approachable. We ended up talking for 45 minutes. And really, it was a good discussion. I will say, we got to a point where we just had to agree to disagree, is where we ended up. And she asked me the same question, and Director Hickman couldn't be on the call, and so I didn't want to speak for her. She did ask me if there were some amendments, and what I did say to her was, well, I'll take it to my colleague and confer with her before we give you a decision. And we ended up discussing it and coming to the same point we did with Representative Timmons. But really, I try to be careful not to speak for Representative Rule, but where the point of disagreement came was this. My point was school districts, so Representative Rule her professional life deals with, she's I think she might be a psychologist. Counselor. And so she deals with these things, in her professional life, and I appreciated her insight on that, because what she said is that it's rare that parents don't know, and they always encourage that. But my point to her was, well, that's great, but that's what you do for a living. Our teachers are not. Our educators are not. That's not their lane. They shouldn't be dealing with that, and teachers should not be getting in between the relationship between a child and their parent. And I believe that's kind of where we ended up sort of disagreeing to disagree. And so that's the rub. I don't think she completely she really does appreciate, she's a parent, obviously, and she understands, but it was just, I think she was wrestling a little bit with that. But that was really kind of the big, I think, money line of the discussion, was I just said, this shouldn't be put on our schools. This is not something we should be dealing with. I want parents going to somebody like you, but to the extent that a school can facilitate that by not keeping secrets from a parent, that's what I want. So
Well, and I
anyway,
think that Timmons asked the question of, the mental health component.
right,
And I know this has already been in the news, and, what was considered mental health 20 years ago is different today. And there's a lot of kids who self-diagnose, and then you have unlicensed individuals
right.
that, to affirm that in a kid who's might go on, obviously you guys have all heard my opinion on this, but might
Absolutely.
go on to make decisions that, they might later come to regret and then carry a lot of burden that should never have been theirs to make in the first place.
That's absolutely right.
So. So we're
Definitely.
following up with a letter.
We are following up with a letter or, yeah,
Maybe it'll be an editorial
With the letter, what the purpose of the letter is what?
to tell them why they should vote the way they voted for the parental rights bill. At
Okay.
least on
Yes.
5181.
So just to kind of
Yeah.
reiterate what we've already said about in the
Yeah.
resolution.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Which is on behalf of the board.
Our letter would just be
legislative-
underscoring what we've already said in our resolution, that
Yeah.
we oppose these bills, and our letter would just basically underscore the reasons why. And it doesn't sound like anybody would disagree with any of those points, right?
Just wanted to clarify whether it was from an individual board member or on behalf of the board. So,
Yeah, it would be from us
The
as
legislative
legislative reps.
committee.
Yes.
okay, thank you.
What's the status of that bill right now, do you know?
It is still in, isn't it
5181
rules?
is in-house education still. It flipped houses.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, so
It's-
it's 5181.
Oh,
is the amending
5181 is.
Amending parental rights bill.
Yes,
It is now in the House.
yes.
Just to catch you up to speed, so the SPED, the 5262, as of today, is for second reading in rules.
Yes.
5192, the MSOC, same, now it's in the House.
Those are the two we support.
Yep, we support those,
The
yep.
board supports.
Board supports that. Yep.
If I'm just going down the resolution, the 5123 discrimination in schools bill, as of yesterday, went to a second reading in the Rules Committee. 5179 non-compliance, where we could get fined for not following their rules, yesterday went to a second reading in the Rules Committee. 1296 safe support of public education, same, second reading.
That's the House bill.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And, yeah, that's it.
Still in the
What's the-
House or the 1296?
1296
Uh-huh.
is for a second reading. Yes, it is still in the House.
Still in the House.
Yep.
What's the fine? Remind me what that amount is.
20% up to.
Yeah, actually, I thought it was more than that.
Oh,
The
So
1296 has no limit. I think the Senate version has, I think it's 20%,
Yeah,
if I
that's what I
remember
read.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I add, so Let's Go Washington is actually gearing up for another initiative along the lines
Huh?
of I-2081.
Okay.
So, just wanted to share that. And then the other thing, I don't know if you guys have read, that white paper that we had back in August. And I know I'm repeating the point, but it's because it's important to underscore that even without the Initiative 2081, we still have FERPA,
Yes, yeah,
right?
we did.
Federal law. And then we still have PPRA, which is also a federal law that allows access to, well, gives rights to parents so that they can access their child's curriculum in any format. So whether, we have it, Initiative 2, I'm not saying that it's not important, just wanted to, add on to that, that these two still, we have these safeguards to fall onto, so.
Potentially, yes. We've always got this, that wrestle between federalism, and so,
Yeah.
like I said, just like everything else, things are evolving. We'll just have
Things
to keep-
are evolving, correct.
So we'll see. Though, the thing I have heard is that things that have a fiscal note, because of the budget issue, the state, there's a ton of stuff going on at the state level, and in fact, so much so that even when we met with Representative Timmons, he hadn't heard about 1296, I don't believe at all, or just hadn't, right? So there's just a lot of stuff going on. And it sounds to me like they're very much focused on their budget shortfall. And so things I think that are going to cost money, with the exception of education, I think the education bills have some momentum. And that's a good thing, but there's going to be heavy lifts, so we'll see
And
if
they're
they get
focused
stuck.
on their bills that they've put forth.
Yeah. What's that?
They're focused on the bills they put forth.
Their focus is on the ones that they're sponsoring at this point until it goes to the floor. But I think we're getting ahead of it before they go to a floor vote, so.
Oh, definitely, every action has, what is that, Newton's law?
That's
Has
right.
an equal and opposite reaction. And I think what we're doing here, and then there are other, as courageous as this board is, other school districts across the state are doing, it is having an impact.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
thank you, and keep up the good work.
All right. Next is finance. Oh, so is this me, Director Martinez?
Yeah,
Or did you
yeah.
want to start?
Yeah, I guess I'll start just
Yeah,
with the
please.
audit. We're going through the end of our audit currently, and so it looks like March 17th or 24th, excuse me, we'll meet for an exit meeting, and there, as of right now, it seems to be like a low level of concern in terms of anything that our board would need to really be concerned about with our finances. And so we'll report on that depending on when we meet, either on the 20th of this month, or April 3rd. So
Yep.
that was about all I had to say for the audit.
Yeah, sounds like.
April 3rd is your meeting with the audit.
No, our meeting is either on the 17th or the 24th, and I'd like to be in
And you're
that,
just talking about the meeting for us.
the exit meeting, and then our follow-up will be with you guys in the
With the
next board meeting, depending on when we do, but I'd like to be in that one. I'd recommend Director Verberg
Sure.
being on our finance committee, we be there, and, because if we have more than that, then we have quorum. So.
Yeah, and then I think we'll do just like we did last time. We'll just report out to the full board what the findings were, and we'll have that published.
Yeah. It's published, and that report's public, and
To clarify, we are not anticipating any findings.
Yes.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
to clarify, there's an
Yes.
exit, we're anticipating one exit item is probably.
Ben's sweating
is
over there.
probably procedural. So words matter
Thank
when
you.
you talk about audits.
Yes, they do. Yep. Not expecting any.
So all good
findings.
news, expecting
All
one
good
exit item.
news.
It's probably gonna be procedural.
Kudos to Ben and the finance
The
team.
whole team, yeah.
Yeah, so the other two things we discussed were the financial outlook, and then I think Ben covered most of that with us earlier. The rest of the 25 school year is looking really good, and, notwithstanding some questions about some movements. But so far, the big thing is, we should have a healthy end fund balance at the end of the year, this year. And so that's a good thing. So Ben's been working on the forecast for next year's budget. That was the other thing. So we did budget organization process and projections. No big highlights at this point. We're not looking at any significant reductions for next year. And I think, if things turn out the way we think they are, we should have an end fund balance way above our 5% for next year as well. And so, anyway, there's still some information, Ben, I think that we're waiting for you to pour. I think. Yeah, right. So we're still pulling information together, but that will be shared later. And I think that our budget, that's August is when we approve our next year's fiscal year budget, right? So.
Yeah, and that end fund balance is close to 8.76, that 5,583,000.
Yeah.
I'll just say, I think end fund balance is awesome. I don't want to detract from that, but I do feel like, we passed a balanced budget.
Yep.
And we kind of made a big deal about the fact that we passed a balanced budget. And so, accounting treatments aside, shifting money, I get that. I do think it's important that we work really hard to end the year with a balanced budget.
Yep.
So, I think that's as important as the end fund balance.
For sure. Yeah, I think the end fund, that's a canary, right? Because that's your savings account, right? And so,
Right.
and we can't, and we've talked about it, you can't keep drawing that down forever. And so, yeah, I think you got to keep your eye on the ball in the short term, right? I think, and make sure that you're,
we can't do anything about shortfalls of federal revenue and things like that, but.
things out of our
But we do have to deal with it, so.
Yep.
Which is not a criticism, Ben. Just-
The budget was a 5.7 million end fund balance, and that is in the sights.
That's right.
I think it's gonna be higher, Ben thinks it's gonna be a
Up
little
to
lower.
6.
And sit back and wait.
All right. Any other questions about finance? Okay, appreciate that. All right. That takes care of all of the board committee reports, and I think with that, we can adjourn the meeting. Meeting adjourned.